Hey homie, I'm Ebony. Everybody's got opinions about age gap relationships. The gossip, the judgment, the fascination. But astrology tells a story that's way deeper. I see it in celebrity charts, in client charts, even my own. It's the Venus-Saturn story, the astrology of attraction that crosses timelines, challenges comfort, and sometimes makes love feel like work. Sure, it can show up as an age gap, but that's just one version of it. It shows up in ways you wouldn't expect. Not just in who you date, but when, how, and even what you crave. And once you see the pattern, you won't unsee it. That's what we're getting into in this video, the truth about Venus-Saturn love. So let's break this down, starting with Venus. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, harmony, and art. She shows us what we attract and what we find attractive. She's how we relate, what we desire, and how we connect. Venus is sensual, magnetic. She's the part of you that wants to feel good and look good. In the tarot, Venus corresponds to the Empress card. Think living a soft life, getting thicker than a Snicker, and growing something beautiful in a cozy, sensual environment. She's all about voluptuousness and pleasure without putting in too much effort. Venus is the picnic by the lake with your boo. Wine, brie, fresh fruit, flowers, just a vibe. She's fun. And perhaps most important for this video, she represents our experience of relationships. But she's also our vices, the things we love too much. If loving it is wrong, Venus don't want to be right. Now, let's get into Saturn. So I wouldn't call Saturn the opposite of Venus. That's too simplistic. If Venus is sugar, Saturn is starch, bringing you the sharpest of creases. Saturn is the planet of rigidity, structure, and seriousness, but also anxiety, fear, and delay. It is discipline, labor, and responsibility. Nothing comes easily under Saturn except for hard times. Ain't shit sweet over here. Making hard calls and tough choices. Saturn drives the struggle bus. It's heavy, dealing with loss, separation, aging, and time. Maybe you've heard the gospel song, He's an On-Time God, that says he may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. That's Saturn. Things don't happen when you want them to, they happen when you're ready. And sometimes that means learning the same lesson over and over, backwards, forwards, upside down, until it finally sticks. Saturn is the part of you that says never again, and actually means it. It's the receipts you keep, the lessons you don't forget, the boundaries you finally hold. Saturn doesn't just learn from pain, it builds a whole security system around it. I know that sounds harsh, and Saturn gets a bad rap, but we need Saturn. A fellow astrologer, I think it was Austin Coppock, once said, Saturn is like the brakes on a car that's flying downhill too fast. You might curse the slowdown, but those brakes are going to be what keeps you from going over a cliff and falling to a catastrophic death. Saturn rewards consistency, patience, and practicality. It's that monastic voice saying, eat your vegetables every day. Because one day, when your organs are failing, you're going to wish you'd had them their nutrients. Saturn is the anxiety that keeps you alive, the discipline that keeps you grounded. But sometimes too much of that fear or isolation can block you from joy, from connection, from spontaneity. Some call Saturn the planet of karma. And yeah, Saturn is your training ground. But when you finally pass the test, Saturn lets you graduate and you become the teacher. If Venus is the pleasure principle, Saturn is the reality check. Now that we've set the stage, let's talk about what happens when these two start dancing. That's where things get interesting. I'm going to walk you through 6 ways this energy can show up, the most common Venus-Saturn stories I see. And just so you know, this doesn't only apply to people with Venus and Saturn in aspect. If you or your boo have got Venus in Capricorn or Aquarius, Saturn in your 7th house, or Saturn in some aspect to your 7th house ruler, this flavor still applies. You could also feel this by transit too. All right, let's get into 6 sides of Venus-Saturn. A lot of the Venus-Saturn stories are rooted in a need for security and love. There's often fear, anxiety, or guardedness. The walls are up and they're stuck. Saturn brings inhibition, a lack of trust, and a fear of being hurt again, an inability to be vulnerable. Venus wants ease, Saturn needs proof. Rigidity becomes protection. Saturn has rules, standards, and expectations, not just for the partner, for itself. So here's number one: love with a checklist. These are the checklist people. Experience is a Saturn word, and based on their experiences, they have clear rules on what they will and won't accept. A couple of celebrity examples. Jonah Hill famously made headlines when his ex shared the list of boundaries he gave her. Things like no bikini pictures, no surfing with men, no modeling. He called it setting boundaries. The internet called it controlling. He's got a Venus-Saturn conjunction, and it shows. Trust issues disguised as order. Saturn really said, if I make enough rules, nothing bad can happen. Spoiler alert, things still happened. On a healthier note, Viola Davis has a Venus-Saturn opposition. She shared many times in interviews that she prayed for the kind of man she wanted. A big black man, maybe an athlete from the South, probably been married before and has kids, maybe an actor, someone who goes to church and loves God. 3.5 weeks later, she met Julius Tenen, an actor and ex-football player from Texas. They've been married for more than 20 years. I see you, girl. When you know what you want and what you can't accept, that's Saturn at work. Structure, discernment, and divine timing. But strict standards and caution mean love can take longer to find, which leads to number 2, delayed marriage. Venus-Saturn doesn't care about your dating goals. You can manifest, visualize, and write married by 30 in your journal all day, but Saturn still be like, that's cute, not yet. This is the I didn't get married until 42 or 47, 56 placement. Saturn's like the teacher who keeps handing back your essay saying, you're getting closer, but write that again. Love under Saturn's timeline arrives when you've built the internal structure to hold it, when you've learned to sit with yourself first, to stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, to stop chasing people you have to prove yourself to. I see this pattern all the time in client charts. People who say, I didn't meet the right person until I stopped trying. That is the magic of Saturn. The minute you stop white-knuckling love, Saturn's like, aha, now you're ready. Elton John is a great example. He's got Venus and Saturn, which is a Saturn-ruled sign. He didn't meet his husband, David Furnish, until he was in his 40s, after decades of chaos, rehab, reinvention, and growth. He wasn't late. He was ready. That is the Saturn story. You're being prepared for something that won't collapse under pressure. So, if you've been single just a tinch or maybe 10 tinches longer than you expected, if it feels like love skipped your stop, trust me, Saturn's got your GPS rerouted. Saturn isn't saying no, it's saying not yet. And that not yet might mean like a decade or 2 from now. And that leads us to our next chapter, 3, age gap relationships. This one is still taboo for a lot of people. And yes, there are extreme cases involving power imbalances and illegal behavior, but those veer more into Neptune territory and other chart factors where delusion blurs morality and legality. Don't y'all get out here saying Ebony told you to be a pedo, because that's not what we're talking about here. Venus-Saturn age gaps are usually about maturity. Most people who have Venus-Saturn are just tired of the BS. They don't have time for the games. They want substance, safety, and security, emotional and otherwise. They're direct. Is we gonna do this or not? And that often shows up as dating someone with an age difference that might raise eyebrows. Usually someone older, but sometimes you're the older one. Either way, there's that pull towards someone who feels established, grounded, wise, or you're that person for someone else. The point isn't who's older. It's that someone in the dynamic is carrying Saturn energy, experience, seriousness, stability. And sure, we all know at least one older person who ain't got a lick of sense. Age doesn't guarantee maturity. Sometimes this can look like dating an old fool, but that's not the goal. Ideally, as people get older, they put away childish things, and that's the energy that Venus-Saturn is drawn to. It's not about grooming, it's about stability. You're not looking for a parent, you're looking for someone who's solid. Someone who won't fold when life gets heavy. And if that looks like being with someone older, or being the older one yourself, so be it. A few examples. Alexander Edwards, a recording executive, has a Venus-Saturn connection in his chart and is dating legendary icon Cher, who's 40 years his senior. Melania Trump has a wide Venus-Saturn conjunction in Taurus. She's 24 years younger than her husband, Donald. Number 4, structure, practicality, hard work, and love. A Venus-Saturn person doesn't play about you. They might not love out loud. It's not flashy. These aren't the people who are going to fill your home with roses or jump on Oprah's couch and scream out how much they love you. There's nothing performative about it. They will love you in the quiet, everyday kind of way. They'll show up, they'll fix your sink if it's broken, they'll remember your dentist appointment. That's foreplay, honey. Just not the kind they write songs about. They love a plan, a process, a partner who shows up in return, somebody they can count on and build with. They'll be consistent, steady, long-suffering. But people don't like to hear that word long-suffering when it comes to love. We want love to be easy, chill, Venusian. But sometimes you can have too much Venus, too much of the sweet life. And Saturn is like, you gonna get a cavity, B? Venus-Saturn love is about brilliance. You may be this type of person or attract a Saturn type of person who's quiet, steady, content to work in the background. This is when Saturn love becomes like a slow cooker. It's not fancy, but it'll feed you for days. Not a lot of sizzle, but a solid stew. Dolly Parton has a Venus-Saturn opposition, and we barely saw her recently departed husband Carl, but that was her boo. He let her shine, made sacrifices so that she could have a career. That's Saturn love. Denzel and Pauletta Washington are another great example. Denzel's got a Venus-Saturn conjunction in Scorpio. Pauletta's got hers in Virgo. And they've talked a lot about the work that it takes to stay together. And from Denzel, we hear 40 years of sacrifice, 40 years of forgiveness. She taught me about faith, spirituality, love, real love, unwavering love in spite of myself. And here's what Pauletta had to say. He has and knows he has stability in me as his wife, regardless if he misuses it. I can't dwell on that. But I do know that gives him a great platform to go and fly. That's not a Christina Milian or Lindsay Lohan rom-com. It's a Saturn kind of love. That brings us to number 5, the shadow side, when Saturn can get too heavy. Real talk. Saturn doesn't always promise endurance. Sometimes the work becomes too much. The long suffering goes on for too long. And you realize that love isn't enough, or maybe that you're the only one doing the work. That can lead to resentment, bitterness, jealousy. That's why Venus-Saturn can be a midpoint for divorce or choosing to be single. And this energy doesn't just show up in our relationships with others, it can show up in how we treat ourselves. When you're starved of Venus, of sweetness, connection, softness, you might try to self-soothe. Some people reach for sugar, food, shopping, anything that gives a quick hit of pleasure. Venus is out here stress eating Krispy Kremes like, if Saturn won't let me have love, at least I'll have original glazed. Some astrology texts, like the combination of stellar influences, even list Venus-Saturn as a signature for prostitution, both those who sell and those who buy. It's about the loneliness factor, the need for connection without emotional risk, love reduced to transaction. If that resonates for you, here's what I'd say. Find Venus in ways that actually fill you, not just the quick fixes. Listen to music, make art, wear something that makes you feel beautiful. Spend time with people who see you. Let yourself have pleasure and beauty again without guilt. Show yourself love. Saturn builds the structure, but Venus reminds you what makes life worth building in the first place. But when two people are willing to grow with the weight, not against it, when they both choose to stay through Saturn's lessons, something beautiful can happen. And that brings us to number 6, love that endures. Saturn love is steady, grounded, and loyal to the bone. These are your ride or dies. Once they're in, they're in. One of my favorite astrology quotes comes from William Ramsey's Astrology Restored. He wrote, "If a Saturnian person loves anyone, which seldom happens, they will love that person constantly and entirely. And if a Saturnian person hates someone, which frequently happens, they will hate that person to the death and with a perpetual hatred hardly to be removed." Saturn doesn't do gray areas. These are the people who can stand in a relationship for decades, 10 toes down. Not because it's easy, but because it means something. And maybe because it feels safer than the alternative, the unknown. They're practical, dependable, and too busy for the games. If they've decided that you are their person and you've checked their boxes, they're locked in. But it's not automatic. I've already shared a few examples of relationships that have lasted decades, a lifetime. Dolly and Carl, Viola and Julius, Denzel and Pauletta. My dad has this, and my parents, Bryn and Ken, have been married for almost 50 years. Shout out to them. So those are the 6 faces of Venus-Saturn, from the checklist to the enduring love and everything in between. Now, before you start diagnosing yourself or your whole dating history, remember, no single aspect or planet tells your whole love story. Everything is connected and happens in context. You might have Venus-Saturn and never date someone older. You might have it and get married young. Venus-Saturn is one thread in the tapestry, not the whole design. Here's the bottom line. Venus-Saturn teaches you that real love isn't easy. It's earned. It's not a curse. It's a curriculum. It's not here to punish you. It's here to prepare you. You are not broken. You are building. And look, if you want to go deeper into your own chart, if you're ready to understand your specific patterns, your timing, what your Venus and Saturn are actually doing, I do readings. Link is in the description if that calls out to you. If this video resonated, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next, because I've got more for you. And drop a comment. Tell me what's the most Saturnian thing you've ever done for love. I want to know. Thanks for being here. See you real soon. Peace, homie.